Hi, in today's episode, we have Anurag Chauhan. Anurag is a social worker in India. He's the founder of Humans for Humanity. It's an NGO headquartered in Dehradun, which is again in India. Anurag is widely known for social work, especially his work in menstrual hygiene, and we're going to ask him to tell us a lot more about it. But before that, it's called the WASH Project that was started by Anurag, and it's reached over 1.5 million women in over 6 states in the last 5 years. Anurag started social work from a tender age of 14. You've heard that right, from the tender age of 14. During this pandemic, he has been providing aid and essentials to over 8,000 families in various parts of the country, supporting communities, low-income group families, trans men, widows, maids, etc. The WASH Project, which is a pilot project of the organization, has been working to promote menstrual hygiene among the women of rural areas of 6 states of the country, including Uttarakhand, Delhi, Rajasthan, Haryana, and a few others. He decided to work on the initiative for trans men since last year, which Anurag is going to tell us more about. But to me, what's amazing is that Anurag Chauhan, who's a man in India, there's still such a taboo to talk about menstrual health, decided to work towards female menstrual hygiene. And that, to me, is a beacon of light in a society where there's even today severe gender oppression, towards subjects that we consider taboo. Do you agree with me on that, Anurag?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Yes, it is still a taboo. And when people say that things are changing, when I go back to the rural areas that I work in, I don't think anything is changing there because the narrative is only changing in the cities, and that too in very niche kind of crowd where people are talking about it because there's a film on it, and it has become fancy. It has become fashionable to talk about menstrual hygiene. But with half-cooked knowledge, when these people turn up in villages and slums, or giving this information to even their children or people who are living around them, I wonder what are they saying, because it is wrong information, and wrong information is even worse than no information. So things have not really changed. Where they're changing, but at a snail's pace. It's very, very, very slow. But I have hope that one day we will have India free of poor menstrual hygiene.
There was a horrible report that I'd read, during the floods. Actually, there was this little girl, I think in Assam, where she'd taken a whole fistful of sand and she'd put that into her panty to avoid, because she had no access to any sanitary napkins. And, and this is something that's taken so much for granted, Anurag, because we can talk about medicines, we can talk about education for girls, we can talk about, and like you rightly said, that this has become quite the norm to talk about. I don't know if I would use the word fashionable, but yes, you probably sound with it when you're saying that, we are okay about, because there's still temples in India where women are not allowed to go because they menstruate. But what is fascinating for me is this, that when did you realize that you would like to do this WASH project, being a man? What was that moment of epiphany for you when you said that you chose this field of work? I would really like our listeners to know that.
Well, this field of work started long back, whereas the WASH project started in 2014. When I started social work, because of a small little incident that happened. I was in my class, I think grade 6th, and Pandit Birju Maharaj was performing in front of me at the school. And of course, I was jubilated. I was very happy seeing him because we've always read about him in our GK books. In fact, every GK book in every class, the first page would be about the legends of India, and his name was in one of those lists. So it was great seeing him performing in front of me, but I was wondering that why is a man who's nearly 70 years of age coming and performing in front of us, whereas my grandfather of the same age is enjoying his retirement at home. So rather than keeping this as a thought, I asked him a question. I said, "Why are you still performing? Because you're old." And what he said was beautiful. What he said was something that gave direction to me. He said, "Whatever we had in our country was either taken away or stolen away. What is left is the rich cultural heritage, the traditions, and the culture. And that is what I'm preserving by coming and dancing in front of you. I'm not letting my art form die." And then I asked him the second question. I said, "But you're old. I'm young. What can I do? And he said, just volunteer. And that's how it started.
So, when you say volunteer, Birju Maharaj is obviously in the field of arts, right? I'm very interested to know that how did you veer towards the work that you're doing, the work that you're doing with WASH? That would be very, very interesting for a lot of our listeners to know. How did this whole come about? Why did you decide to choose WASH over any other form of social work? Obviously, you are a guy who's got empathy. Evidently, you love philanthropy, and you like this whole idea of giving back to society, and that's how I related to you after reading your posts, after following you and speaking to you. But why was it this that you chose WASH over others?
Okay. Now, Mahua, the WASH project started in 2014. But way before it started, I was struggling with questions. I was struggling with thoughts about poor menstrual hygiene, about what's happening around in our country. And let me tell you how it began as a child. As a child, I used to steal my mother's sanitary napkins. And I used to steal them to go up somewhere near the roof. And I would, with my ink pen, drip one drop by another drop and see how much can it absorb. It was like a game for me because I used to watch it on television. They used to show ink, blue ink, and that's what I used
Yes.
to try. I thought it was some kind of game. And my mother walked up to me one day and found me doing this. And what she said to me was, "This is for me. This is for my blood. This is not meant for you to play." Now, for a moment, I was quiet, but I was wondering that what kind of blood? And I as a child thought that it was a band-aid because it has stickers and it is like a white big sanitary napkin. And I thought it was some kind of band-aid that people would put on bigger wounds. I just couldn't understand. And that is when I started reading about it, starting asking questions about it. And in this process, I also find an article which was in 2011. And this article stated that 180,000 women were dying, which was an estimate number because they did not know the exact statistics. And we still do not know how many women are dying in our country because of poor menstrual hygiene. But this is what I said in 2018, and this is what I'm going to still say, that it is a very, very big problem. It is an issue which is big, which is probably as big as polio. It will become as big as polio if not tackled at this stage. When I said this, Maua, everyone thought that I've gone mad because I'm talking about menstrual hygiene and that's all I care about. No, it is one of the most essential problems that we should deal with. Not when we say we, it's the government, it's the individuals, it's organizations. All of us should deal with it. Now, an article came out, a study came out rather, in 2019 and 20, which said that poor menstrual hygiene and no access to menstrual hygiene products has become fifth biggest reason in the world for women to die. Now that proves my point, but I'm not happy that it's proving my point. I'm rather sad that when I've been shouting and telling and asking people about it, no one's really bothered. People are only bothered to talk about it, but not really do something about it. And if they are doing, whether they are doing it really or just to showcase it to the world that we're doing something in this field. Now you asked me why I started it. I'll tell you the question that disturbed me for many years, and even today, I ask the same question to people who talk of women empowerment. As a child, when I was growing up, women empowerment was again a very fashionable term. It has become very fashionable even today. A lot of people who talk about women empowerment do not even know what does it mean. But I was wondering to myself that how can we empower a woman when we cannot even save their lives? We are talking about female feticide. We're protecting the small little girls from parents who don't want girl child, but at the same time, are we really taking care of that little girl? No, in many regions of our country, no, not even today. So, how will you empower a woman when you can't save her life? Is what I kept thinking to myself. And then I just thought to myself, I have to stop thinking and act upon it, which is why in 2014 we started this project.
So, Anurag, how did your family react? When you say that, obviously, your mother said that this is for my own blood. And what was the feeling that went, through your heart at that time? And when you decided to research about this, did you fear being rebuked by your parents, or were your parents open? And also in school, it would be wonderful, I think, for listeners to know this, because there are so many children who are different from the rest, because boys are expected to be macho, boys are expected to be bullies, boys are expected to make fun. And I know that being a mother myself, so for you to be sensitive towards the opposite gender, to understand all of this, what was that journey like? I mean, I think the listeners, it would be great, because there's so many people who want to do, but they are fearful, they're scared, and they don't know how to walk that journey alone. So please share that with us.
Well, there was nothing that scared me. There was nothing that bothered me. My family, my parents were very supportive of me, and they were rather very neutral. They never bothered about what I was doing, and they let me do what I wanted to do. But I'll tell you why this instinct and why this force behind me was so powerful. It was so powerful because I lost my sister. I lost my sister when I was 5 years of age. For a little kid, for whom in those days you would know that it's a girl child or it's a boy. And my mother and my family was very happy. When I was 5 years old, my mother thought, okay, now I have a girl. My family is complete. For me, it was a beautiful news because I had someone to play with.
Hmm.
And I waited for that moment for 9 months with my mother. I don't even remember those thoughts, but my mother, when she told me everything later. As a 5 year old, I was just waiting for that moment to happen. I wanted that baby to come in front of me. So on the day of the delivery, I sat outside my house and I said, I will not go to the school today. And what I need is to see my mother coming home with the daughter. And I kept on waiting for the whole day. In the evening, my dad returns and my mother wasn't there. So I kept on thinking to myself, where's my mom? And I asked my dad, Mom, where's mom? And he said, she's in the hospital. And I said, okay, fine, I'll wait for her. After a few days, my mother came back, but there was no baby. And, I kept on asking this question to them until my mother really broke. It was 6 months later that my mother broke and she was angry and upset. And she said, she's gone to Bhagwan Ji. Wo Bhagwan Ji ke paas chali gayi hai.
Oh
That
my
was the
God.
day when I was heartbroken. I literally cursed God for so many years as a child because I did not get that sister to play with. And I was just thinking to myself, what happened? I mean, of course, today I know that there was internal bleeding, and when my mother was giving birth to her, she died. But I did not know any of this at that moment. And for at that moment, I think that was the most precious thing to me. So somewhere down the line, that force is behind me, which says that no girl should die. Because every girl, to be very honest, this may sound very funny, but I have not been able to get into a relationship, Mawa, because each time I look at a girl, I see my sister. Now, where do I go?
That's like really, it's deeply imprinted in your brain. I know exactly, in your heart. I know exactly what you're saying. No, it doesn't sound funny to me at all, because it's something that has moved you, that stays back inside your heart. But Anurag, I will tell you that, you know what? A sister is a term that's given to an individual, because somebody who's like a friend to you, जिसके साथ नोक झोंक होता है, लड़ाई होती है. I'm a single child. I never had the luxury of having a sister. And today I realize that so much, my God, because I'm a single child looking after my parents who are ailing. And my best friends are my sisters, okay? And they don't live in India, because I am one doesn't live in India and the other one is in Delhi. And I I really miss that person with whom you can come back and talk your heart out, and you're not going to be judged, and you both can laugh. You both share the same, heartbreak stories and all of that. So, well, when you talk about a relationship and you say that, in every woman you do find that sister, I do think that, what, I would definitely, with my experience in life, I think you need to find all of those things probably in multiple people, or maybe in one person you find it all. So it's not at all awkward that you said that you're looking for your sister. It's something that has brought you to do something so large as this. I mean, it was fascinating because we spoke to each other over the phone, and then I started reading and I said, oh, I was gobsmacked to see the amount of work that you've done. So obviously she's been like, even if she's not there physically in your life. She's obviously there in your soul. And it's not funny at all to me because the work that you do is unbelievably, it has empathy. And you, as a human being, when I talk to you, I know that you're the type who is very dependable. And all of this comes from a space of a heart that feels. Also, your work on trans men. Tell me a little bit about that, Anurag.
So last year, Mahua, I started working with a lot of trans men. Now it is very difficult to identify and work with trans men, but at the same time, I didn't want to exclude them from this project because they are also someone who menstruate. And we cannot just ignore them and say, fine, they have now identified themselves as men, so we will not bother about them.
I need you to tell my listeners once again that trans men also menstruate.
Trans men also menstruate. And I did not want to ignore them or did not want to exclude them from the WASH project. So I wanted to make sure that we take everyone together, and that's when I went to Aryan, who is one of the trans men, and Aryan is very famous today because of the work that he does for trans men. He's someone who's a bodybuilder, uh, and I spoke to him. I spoke to him because I did not know how does it work. So I was very blunt, and I asked him questions about periods, about menstruation, and he told me that yes, those people who've not gone under any surgeries, those people who are not on hormones, those people who do not have enough money. Aryan is absolutely amazing trans man. He's very popular today for doing what he does. He's a bodybuilder, and he works for the trans men. He's just launched a salon. Anyway, he does a lot of things, but I really did not know how does it work for the trans men. So I asked him all these questions. And since he was connected with so many trans men, I said, the first thing that I would like to do is because they were all in big problems. Why were they in problem? Because their families, so many of them are not accepted by their families. And during this lockdown, they had no work. So they were all hungry. They were all without food. So I said, the first thing we should do is provide food to them. And that's how it started with the trans men. I started talking to them. They were very hesitant, very, very hesitant. They were not very happy. So, there are different things that goes on with the trans men. So many of them are not happy with the process of menstruation because they identify themselves as males. And each time they menstruate, that is when, that reminds them that they were born as females. And so it has a lot of psychological thing. And I cannot alone deal with it. Of course, we have a psychologist on board, we have a counselor on board, so that we know how are we, if we're going on the right track or not. But it was wonderful talking to them. But at the same time, the social problems are all interrelated. They're weaved together. So each time I deal with one problem, I have to think about another solution for another problem as well. So right now, most of them do not have work, do not have a place to live in. They do not have food. So with menstruation, we have to think about these, problems as well. We just cannot say that, okay, fine, since I'm working on a project called WASH, I will not care about such basic things. So we take care of such things as well. And it's going well, but I think it's just the beginning with the transgender project, because the transgender project will take a lot of time to evolve. It will take a lot of time to shape up because we've just started with them.
So, Anurag, I have to tell you this, we're actually on the same page on so many levels because, I began my work, in 2018, and I remember that my first very, very, very amateur film that I'd, done, that I'd put it up on YouTube was with, with the transgender community. And it had happened to me because I'm a Bengali, and for Durga Puja is a very big festival for me. And I remember going there, and there were these four transgender people who were there, and they were not being allowed in. And we talk about being inclusive, and there's so much of talk about you need to, and these are people who are well heeled, educated, because that's how you do this whole pujo. That's where you pump in the money and the rest of it, and they were not being allowed inside. Of course, not by the authorities, but there was one of these guys who was there. And I just couldn't put myself together to go in for that arti, because I kept thinking that why would there be discrimination? And it just plagued my heart and my mind. And I kept thinking, why? And I did speak to a few of my friends, and obviously everybody discouraged me. And they said, "Oh, you know what? You live in this little tower of yours. You have no idea. You wouldn't even know." And of course, I had been at home for so long, Anurag, that I was frightened, what lay ahead because, everybody discouraged me. But it was one day that I stopped at this signal, in Bangalore, and I saw three of them. They were standing together and drinking a cup of tea. And I stopped. I got out of my car and I walked up to them and I said, "Hi, I want to do a small Durga Puja film, and will you come on my film?" And they started laughing and they said, "Oh, are we going to be the hero and the heroine?" So I said, "Yes, you will." And we exchanged phone number, and they came to my house. I gave them the sari. It was a white sari. I had no budget on me, no money with me. And my mother was the person who did, the pujo. And I wrote, and I'll share this with you actually, Anurag, where they all said together that, and they came home and they did the film with me, and the film is available on YouTube. It's like, and from that film, of course, a whole lot of other opportunities also came along. And one among them just held my hand and said that, "Where is your son?" I said, "My son is, gone to study." And she said that, "I'm 17 years of age and I'm not allowed to go back home. I really miss my mother." And, right now when I'm talking to you, my heart just chokes because I just, and I find it difficult to speak because this is a space that I desperately think that India needs to wake up. We need to wake up and say that, come on. I mean, why should they be on traffic signals? Why should they? Now, of course, the government has come up with a small thing in Karnataka where they would be given a quota in government jobs. But, my whole worry has always been that because they are also sexually abused, would the toilets also be there? Because, okay, we are all, rejoicing that the government has given them a quota. And I wrote an article that, will you also have toilets? Are you going to ensure that they don't get raped? With a bunch of men. And these things just, it hassles me. It keeps me, I mean, of course, I mean, I'm like so nascent in what I'm doing. And also I think, there's this whole, because if you're pure in your mission, I have met you and you've come, and with you, we spoke to each other. And I know that you're the sort of human being who's going to really, really go out there and do really well because you are just so helpful by nature also, that brings in that empathy inside you to understand. But isn't it difficult even to go up to the trans women and the trans men and talk to them and tell them that what is it that you want to do? Because they don't view everybody with the same earnestness, is what I am to understand, if you've been on the streets for too long. Of course, my experience is very different. Would you agree or disagree on that?
Well, it is. And it is not just about trans men. When I walk up to a woman, I mean, just imagine you being so well read and so you've got such good exposure. If I walk up to you and ask you a question, are you menstruating today? You'll probably slap me, or you'll probably wonder that why am I asking that stupid question? Because it is something very personal. I'm not saying that, talking about it doesn't mean that we want to make someone uncomfortable. When we walk up to women straight away and ask this question, they get uncomfortable. It is how the society is. We
It's a
have to deal with it.
conditioning.
It is conditioning. We have to deal with it. And how do we deal with it? So, when people talk of WASH project, they just think, they just assume that it's just giving away sanitary napkin. No, it is not just giving away sanitary napkin. It's a very, very vast project. Now, I'll tell you the 5 points. How do we deal with it? The very first thing is rapport building. You cannot enter any space, any comfort zone without any kind of rapport. I cannot enter your house if I don't know you. So I have to build that rapport with you. When we go to slums, when we go to trans men, when we go to women, we have to build our rapport with them. And there are various activities that we do to conduct these rapport building sessions. After which, the very first thing that we do is awareness. Why is awareness important? Awareness is important because a lot of people do not even know why they menstruate. When they don't know why they menstruate, what happens to them is when they bleed for the first time, they either assume that it's a disease or they think that they're about to die. Now, when they think they're about to die, you can imagine the kind of trauma it leaves in their minds.
Yes.
It is very, very important to make them aware that why it happens to them, because in so many parts of our country, it is still said, "Ki ye to ek shraap hai." This is,
Yes.
or you've probably done some sins, and this is how you're repaying for it. But we have to make them understand that this is no shrap, this is no curse. This is a gift of God which we men do not have. We cannot give birth to a child. You can, which is why that makes you biologically very, very stronger, way stronger than we are. So we have to make them understand that it's a gift and you do not take it as something which is a curse on you. Moreover, when we talk about awareness, it's not just women or trans men that need awareness, but their families too. So the awareness campaigns are also for their families. The awareness also happen for the children, for the elderly. The second thing is, as I told you in the first step, there is trauma. So we need to deal with that trauma, which is why we have listening circles. These listening circles happen in a group of 30 to 40 women where they all come together and discuss their problems. Because for a lot of them, they do not have a platform, they do not have a space, a comfort zone where they can go and talk about their issues and problems. So this listening circle is created for them so that they can come and talk about it. After which they have one-to-one session with professional counselors who give them solutions to the problems that they have, or listen to their problems. And if they can't deal with it, if it is something to do with a doctor, they consult, they ask them to visit a doctor, and we have a doctor on board, a gynecologist who will deal with their physical problems that they have, or biological problems that they have. So that is the second step of counseling. Now, counseling is not just provided to little girls who are about to menstruate, but also to those who have just menstruated and dealt with the trauma, because trauma management is very important. At this point of time, they probably forget about what happened to them for the first time when they were bleeding. But later in the stage, what happens is it still stays back in your subconscious mind and it affects your mental health. So it is very important to deal with that trauma. Then there are again counseling sessions for their husbands, for brothers, for fathers, so that they understand too. The third step is nutrition. You know, even today in our country, people are malnutrition. There's so many
Yes.
people who die of hunger. People do
Yes.
not have food to eat. But that's not the only problem. The problem is also poverty is one problem. People do not have money to buy food. But then, even if they have food, gender bias is another problem. Now, what happens is, even if you go to a village today, a mother has, say, a portion of food, she would give two-thirds of it to a son and one-third of it to a daughter. She
Absolutely.
would
Say
give,
that again.
she would give, if they have three chapatis at home, she will give one chapati to the daughter and two chapatis to the son,
Yes.
assuming that the son needs more food, assuming the son needs more nutrition. So they do not know anything about nutrition. They do not know anything about, how to divide the food between the two siblings. So when we do these sessions, we have nutritionists on board or scholars on board who tell these families about the kind of food they should intake. Now, when we talk about health and we talk about nutrition, we do not tell them to go fancy foods or go have exotic fruits or go have avocados. They can't afford it. We have to give them solutions that are affordable and accessible to them. So when these nutritionists make a plan or tell them about something, they give them solutions that they can easily find in their vicinity, that they can easily afford. And that's how we talk about nutrition. The fourth point is where we give them sanitary pads. Now, you were talking about that little girl who took sand. You will not
Yes.
believe, even today in our country, women are using sand and ash and mud and dry leaves for menstruation
Yes.
when they
Yes.
bleed,
I know.
because anything that can absorb liquid is being used by rural and tribal women even today. Now, what is disheartening is not that they do not have the process, they do not have the access to sanitary napkins, but the bigger problem is the mindsets. Now, I will tell you a very small example. Have you ever heard someone saying "ganda kapda le aana" when they have to clean something?
Yeah, I've heard it because I mean, as a child, I know that a lot of my cousins we used to use cloth, and coming back to menstruation, and then they washed it. They washed off the blood and they dried it. Thank God for my mother who used to buy me the sanitary napkin, and it used to hurt me because it had an elastic all around with a loop, those days. And
Mm.
yes, and I know about cloth that gets used, and sometimes people don't have access to soap and water, and
No,
I
no.
can't even bear to think. Maybe that's what you're
Well,
talking about?
no, 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 no. I'm not talking about menstrual hygiene. I'm talking about the mindset when, for example, you're sitting on a dining table and you spill something. They say, ganda kapda lekar aana, saaf karne ke liye. To clean the table or to clean something, they ask for a dirty cloth. And that is the mindset that still exists, where women are made to think that uh, periods, it's a dirty process, which is why they end up using a dirty cloth because they've been told that it's a dirty process, and they think they are not
Oh my
supposed to
God,
use
it's crazy to hear this.
they're not supposed to use a clean cloth, and they assume that they should be using a dirty cloth for it. Now that is the mindset that we need to change, and that is what we're working towards. When we give them sanitary pads, we do not give them sanitary pads because we want to do charity, just because we want to change their habit. We give them enough sanitary napkins to change their habit. I do not believe in giving them a sanitary napkin every day. It's like giving food to someone one day. That you give food to someone one day and then second day you don't care about it. So you're not helping that person in any way by giving them that one meal. At the same time, if you're giving food every day to that person, you're making that person dependent and disabled. Why disabled? Because that person will never work because he's getting food on his table every day. In social work, we do not believe in making someone dependent. We want to make them independent. We want to uplift them to a level where they can do what they want to do. They can buy their own food. They can eat their own food. They can have their own shelter and buy their own clothes. That is what empowerment is. That is what uplifting is. So, this concept of charity has completely changed in our country today. There used to be a time where people used to not deal with money, but they used to do barter systems, that you give me a little bit of chawal and I'll give you some rice, some dal. You give me this fruit and I'll give you the other fruit. So people used to grow things on their own and they used to barter for each other. Now, in today's time, when we have money, people have so much money today, but what has charity gone down to? Charity has gone down to, okay, for example, Anurag is wearing a t shirt for 5 years now. And now that t shirt is something that he doesn't want to wear. Rather than saying that I'm discarding this t shirt, Anurag says, I want to donate it. That is absolutely rubbish. And that's what people are doing today. Rather than discarding something, they're giving it out to poor people and calling it charity. It is
Correct.
not charity.
Mm.
Charity is when you have 100 rupees in your pocket that you need to spend in a month's time, and out of that 100 rupees that you need, you sacrifice 20 and say, I will give it for charity. When you sacrifice is when you do charity, is not when you're giving the excess amount to someone else and saying that we're doing charity. So that is something that I believe in very strongly. So by giving them sanitary napkins all their lives, I didn't want to make them dependent. And a big example of it was lockdown. uh, we teach them how to make sanitary pads in the fifth point, where they become independent, where they become entrepreneurs, where they have the control in their hands, that they can make the sanitary pad when they want. They don't need to go out and ask anyone else to get their sanitary pads. They can make their own. Now, during this lockdown, what happened at the beginning of this lockdown, Delhi did not consider sanitary napkins as essentials, which is why all the fancy big stores, chemist shops did not have sanitary napkins in the first leg of the lockdown. Which is why a lot of urban women living in Delhi did not have access to sanitary napkin. Now, this probably happened for the first time, that they didn't have sanitary pads. What would they do? Because it was not coming in the market, because the government thought it was not important. It was not an essential. Now, after food, water, shelter, what is the most essential thing? It is a sanitary napkin. You need a sanitary napkin.
Yes, you do. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it was not in the essentials list.
Mm.
And at this point of time, the rural women that we're dealing with. By the way, you said we reached out to 1.5 million women in the last 1 year. It has become 2.5. Well, that
Wow.
number, huge number, they all know how to make sanitary napkins. And women from small little villages, from Belaj, from small little village from Maharashtra, from Rajasthan, from UP, were making sanitary pads. And these sanitary pads were coming to Delhi for the urban women to use. I think we gave away about 1.5 lakhs kits to the urban women in Delhi. And apart from that, I think, I don't know, I don't even know how many sanitary napkins we've given out to the other part of the country during this lockdown. Uh, so that is about the WASH project. This is still, brief about it, because when we talk about dealing with children, we go to schools. You asked me a question about school as to how, even today, I'm sure you know about it. Our biology teachers do not want to talk about it, do not want to teach
Absolutely
this
no. Yeah,
chapter
yeah.
of periods.
Yes.
And should we blame them? Should we not blame them? I do not know. But they're also a part of this society. They're also shy. They're also ashamed, and they do not want to talk about it. Probably. But I think it has to change. The education system has to change. The teachers have to be told that it's very, very important for children to understand these things at a very early stage in life. Now, what I started doing was, rather than telling them or giving them the full information about menstruation or about sanitary pads, we make them curious. Like how I was curious at the very beginning and I went up and studied about it or read about it. That's exactly what we do in schools. In the SUPW period, we ask these children to make sanitary pads, other than the art and craft that they do. They make sanitary pads.
Wow. Fantastic. I think that's such a great initiative, Anurag. Three cheers to you for that. I mean, this is the first time in my life that I've heard that during this period that we are taught, apart from doing needle and thread, you know, and, we're taught to make something that is of use. Fantastic. And which are the schools that you've been able to do this with?
In Dehradun, there are a lot of schools that
Wonderful.
are associated with us, and in these schools, they make sanitary pads. Now, children might not know what it is, what are they making, but when they are told that this is a sanitary napkin, they start wondering. They start, thinking, why are we making this? And those who know, they wonder that why are boys making it? Why are my girls not making it? They have these questions in their mind, and we do not answer these questions for a little while. We let them make these sanitary pads. What they do next is they come together every month, collect as many sanitary pads as they've made in the entire school, because every classroom is making. Now, class one has 4 or 5 sections. So, similarly, till class 12th, there'll be 5 sections in each class. So, each class is making sanitary napkins. And by the end of the month, they have a lot of sanitary pads. When they have those sanitary pads, they go to the nearby slum or nearby basti and they distribute those sanitary pads in their community service around the school. Now, when they do that, they understand that this is used for menstruation, but they still do not know about menstruation. After this process, when they go to a slum and see that whatever they were doing is of some use to someone else, we hold a session with them, which menstrual hygiene management. We tell them about menstruation, what is the biological reason for menstruation, and why boys should also be a part of this movement. And that's how we're reaching out to the schools. There's so many other things that we do. There is breaking the bloody taboo, another project which goes along with the WASH project. Now, breaking the bloody taboo, as the name says, we just break the taboos that we have. Now, some things happen organically and some things are planned. But one of the first incidences that happened in Jawahar Basti in Rajasthan, in Jaipur, was when uh, we planned to do an activity in Jaipur and we did not know where. We only spoke to the slum that we're going to conduct an activity here. And this woman said, "Why don't you come to the temple?" For a moment, I was shocked. I said, "Really? You want us to hold this session inside a temple?" And she said, "Yes, because that's the biggest place that you can
The
accommodate 50
congregation.
to 60 people."
Correct.
And she
Wow.
said, "We don't have any other place where we can have so many people." Moreover, they didn't want to go inside the slum. Why did they not want to go inside the slum? Because it was not clean. They knew it was dirty, they knew it was full of garbage, and they didn't want to invite their guests to a dirty place. Moreover, with me was the princess, and all the ladies and the girls were very excited to see someone from the royal family. With me was also the commissioner of the women commissioner of Rajasthan, of the WCD department. And for them it was a big thing that such big leaders and someone from the royal family has come to see them. Now that really helps me, Maua. When you go to a new place, when you have local support of, I call them local celebrities, be it a pradhan or his wife, be it someone from the royal family,
Absolutely.
they are the local celebrities. And when they walk with you, when they stand with you, when they stand along with you, when they go along with you, people trust you because
Yes.
they know that you've come with someone who's trustworthy. And
Mhm.
that is what helps us a lot when we go to these smaller regions where it matters a lot whom you're coming with. So when we went there, they said, why don't you come inside to a temple? When we went inside the temple, you will not believe that so many of those women were menstruating that day. But they had the courage to come to the temple because they really wanted to
I'm
see
getting
the
the
princess.
goosebumps. My God. Wow, Anurag. Wow.
They really wanted to see the princess, and they did not care about the norms that we have made for them, that the society has made for them, that you're not supposed to go to a temple when you're menstruating.
Yes.
What we did that day was we also gave them tulsi plants. And I said, why don't you plant these trees? But promise me that you will water it every day. Every day means every day. You will not miss watering this tree, this plant. At the same time, I told that even if you're menstruating, do not forget this is a life. We do not want to kill this life. So you have to water it even if you're menstruating. And someone said, "Ye to sook jayega." I said, well, let's see. It's a life. Let's water it. Let's see, will it survive or not? When I went back after a few months, they were all big bushes, and women were laughing and giggling because they were so excited to tell me how their experience was. It was like how in school days your teachers would give you a science project, and if you're successful in making an invention and you go back to the school, you're so happy and you're so confident. And that's what I
Absolutely.
saw in these women. They were so confident that day. They were so happy, giggling and laughing and wanting to tell me what happened to them. And they said, "Bhaiya, ye to सूखा ही नहीं." I said, "कैसे सूख जाएगा? This is what you've been told. Don't water it
मुझे भी
because
यही
वो
बोला
सूख
गया था
जाएगा."
बचपन से कि तुलसी के पेड़ पे आप पानी मत डालो, मंदिर में नहीं घुस जा सकते हो. You can't enter a temple, you can't pour water. And of course, I defied all of them. This is something that's so deep down actually in our culture, that's been taught that women are supposed to just be confined to a space when they're menstruating. So kudos to you. My heartfelt wishes to you, Anurag. I can't begin to tell you how I felt doing this interview today. And, I've been very, very moved with, this report that I'd read, in Assam during this relief camp, okay, where a survey was conducted in 2017 flood that had affected half of Assam's 33 districts. And this girl was bleeding into her skirt for hours in the crowded relief camp. And and she had no sanitary pads on her or a clean dry piece of cloth also to save herself. And I can't even sit down in a city where we have so much that we have with us. And of course, Wash is doing an amazing job with all the work that you're doing. And my heartfelt thank you and gratitude to you for being on my podcast today, Anurag. And I really hope to connect with you because I would really like to work with you because this is so close to my heart. And, maybe we can get together and figure out if there's something that we can do together out of Bangalore.
Absolutely, Maua, absolutely. But before I go, let me tell you two more things uh, to finish this. I was just going on with that one slum where we gave tulsi plants. What we did next with them was conducted an activity where we all made achar. We all made pickles together. And so many of those women who were making pickles were menstruating. And this achar was the yummiest achar that I've ever had in my life. And they understood that it has nothing to do with periods but germs. So what I did was I went out, I touched the ground, I came back and I said, "How are my hands?" They said, "Dirty." I said, "Well, I'll put it inside the achar." And my box of achar, my jar, was the only one which did not work out. It did not turn out to be a nice pickle. It got spoiled because of the dirt. It was not because these women were menstruating कि उनका अचार खराब हो जाएगा. उन सबका अचार बहुत टेस्टी था. They all had that, and they could not believe it कि हमारा अचार खराब नहीं हुआ. So you have to break these taboos. You have to tell them about something which they understand. For example, I'm sure you must have heard that रात को नाखून नहीं काटने चाहिए.
जी,
It's a
बिल्कुल वो लाइट की वजह से है, बट देन
yeah.
हाँ ये
So
बोला
we
गया
have
है
to
हम
we
लोगों
have
को
to
रात को
make
नाखून
people
नहीं.
understand that
हम्म.
you're not supposed to cut your nails, because at that point of time we had no nail cutters, we had no
Yes,
electricity.
yes.
Anyway, we are also making two kinds of sanitary pad, and I must tell you about these two pads that we're making, because it is very, very important for people to know that the sanitary pads that we're making, one is cloth sanitary pad, which is the best quality of sanitary napkin. The best quality of the cloth is used, 100% cotton for the layers. We have flannels, we have fuel sheets, and these sanitary napkins are really wonderful, the reusable ones. The only problem with the reusable one is that in so many regions of our country where there's no water, especially the slums and the dry areas like Rajasthan, they do not have enough water to drink. So we cannot give them this sanitary pad that, okay, you use this and wash this, because it's of no
Hmm.
use to them.
Hmm.
What we are making, the second sanitary pad is 100% eco-friendly. Why I don't call the cloth napkin eco-friendly is because you wash it. When you wash it, you're using water. When you're using water, that water is being wasted, which is why it's a natural resource which is going into the drain, which is why you cannot call it eco-friendly. But the other one that we're making is 100% eco-friendly, made out of bamboo, banana, and sugarcane pulp and fiber. These sanitary napkins are 100% biodegradable. They have no chemicals, and they are the best sanitary napkin that I have probably seen. And it's distributed amongst thousands of women, given their feedback that it's a wonderful sanitary napkin. Why I'm telling you this is because it is very important for people to know that there are products than Stay Free and Whisper that they must use. Though the sanitary napkins that we are making, we are not selling it to anyone. It's not a commercial product, but people should find the right product. What is unfortunate is amongst the educated urban class is that they're always concerned about the products that they buy when it's for their face. They even something like a lipstick or something like an SPF, they'll always be concerned about इसमें क्या chemical है. I hope it will not give me pimples. I hope it will not give me rashes. I hope it will not give me allergies. But when they buy a sanitary napkin, they just buy a sanitary napkin. They do
Yes.
not even know that the chemicals are very, very harmful for them. The plastic, the plastic that is in a sanitary napkin remains on this earth for 650 years. Well, none of us stays for that long. So we don't know whether it happens or not. But the studies have said for so long that it stays for about 500 to 600 years on this earth. Why do we want to produce so much of waste? Why do we want to produce so much of dirt? Because, something that Dr. Shiva has told me, she's an environmentalist. She said, this earth is too powerful. It has lived with dinosaurs, without dinosaurs. It has lived in hotter times and colder times. It's not the earth which will deplete, it's us who are dispensable. The earth will survive. So we have to think about ourselves. We don't have to protect the earth. We cannot protect the earth. She is too powerful. We have to protect ourselves. And for that, we need to be careful. For that, we need to be vigilant. For that, we need to think about what we are doing. We have to take every measure when we take a step. And I think this is a step forward by using eco-friendly sanitary napkins and not buying the pads that
And
are
where is
available
that
in the market.
available, Anurag?
Well, it's available all over the internet. All over the internet. There's so many people who are making it. Well, I don't know. By God's grace, if everything works out, probably we'll come out with a brand soon. But till then, there's so many other brands who are promoting eco-friendly sanitary napkins, and one can find them.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. There is a huge array of people who are now working towards menstrual health, and they are creating, the menstrual cup is there, and there's a whole lot of other stuff also that's available. And like I said, that, you know what, I am moved to my core listening to you, Anurag, because it's so heartwarming. It is so, I always say in each of my episodes that I'm an eternal optimist, and I, you know, men like you make me believe that there will be change in society. Conditionings that we've been growing up with, you know, about not entering a temple, not touching an achar, not, you know, watering the tulsi plant, not, you know, being confined, because there are so many places in India even today that the girl, when she menstruates, she's just pushed into a room and she's not allowed to even go into the kitchen, you know. And all these things will change. It has to change. And I wish you loads and loads of luck with your work. And thank you so much for being in today's episode.
Thank you, Mawa. I think people just need to start asking questions. When they ask questions, they'll find solutions to it. If they keep sitting at home and keep following what they've been told, they will never lead. They will never go to the right direction. So I think we all need to ask questions. Towards the end of it, I'll only like to say one thing, Mawa. Something that changed my life, something that gives me direction, is a small incident when I was 15 years of age. When I was 15 years of age, I happened to meet His Holiness Dalai Lama. And sitting with him for about half an hour, I was just crying. I was just, the tears didn't stop. And I did not know why it was happening to me, because as a 15-year-old, I did not know about Buddhism. I did not know about who Dalai Lama was. I did not know about spirituality or meditation. But when after half an hour, I was asked that, why don't you ask him something since he's sitting with us for so long? I asked him, where do I find Buddha? And he said he was well aware about the work that I started and I was doing. And he said, each time there's a smile on someone's face, and you are the reason for that smile. For that fraction of moment where that person is smiling, you are Buddha. You don't need to go find.
Oh
look for
my
him.
God, Anurag. I have tears in my eyes. Thank you so much. This is amazing. And I will keep this back with me, because sometimes we really question ourselves. You know, when you help people and you get nothing back in return, you question. But what you need to do is just see that look in their eyes and that smile on their face. And that's where is actually your God. And
Yes.
thank you. Yes, yes.
Thank you,
yes.
Mahua.
Thank you so much. To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services. Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course, all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are Moody Mo Awaz Podcast, where Hatke is hot.